Tomorrow is April. Can you believe it? And given that tomorrow is April, hopefully we're done with snow for the season. Although, you can't assume it, so please join me in knocking on wood. Very good, very good. But hopefully we're in safe enough territory that I can share this story with you this morning, and you can handle it, given that the snow season is almost over. This is a story of something that happened back in January of 2005, 14 years ago, but I remember it vividly. In January, I usually travel down to Pennsylvania to see my family of origin, my mom and then my dad and my sisters. And I always drive. It's about a 7-hour round trip. 7 hours each way, 14-hour round trip driving. But this year, even though I've been making that trip for, at that point, something like 12 years, my mother insisted that I fly. She hated to think of me alone in the car for all those hours. And, well, she sort of forced the issue by, buying me a plane ticket. So I flew to and from the closest airports, Logan and Boston, and the Philadelphia International Airport on the other end. The flight to Pennsylvania, no problem. Then it was time to fly back. And it turned out that there was going to be a big snowstorm. But the good news was my flight was going to be a few hours ahead of it. So, good for me. So, dear mom drives me 2 hours to the Philadelphia International Airport. I should point out at this point that, when you fly, you take off at most 2 hours from this trip because you have to drive to the airport in time for security, and then the flight itself and getting your bags and so on. So really, at the end of the day, you don't save much time. But mom was happy, so this is good. So she takes me to the Philadelphia International Airport. I'm going to meet the storm. I get on the plane, and we're waiting longer than usual. And then the announcement comes that they're having mechanical issues. Okay. So we sit and sit. An hour later, the pilot gets on, and this I remember. He said the plane was, and I quote, broken. So he said we would have to get off the plane and get on another plane at another gate. So big collective groan, join with me. Okay. So we go to the other gate, get on the next plane, sit in there, get kind of uncomfortable. But we leave the gate, this is a good sign, and we're in a queue to fly out. And we wait, and we wait, and periodically we'll hear an announcement, we're in the queue, we're still in the queue. And then we hear 5 hours later that we are the next plane to take off. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And we wait, and then we hear the announcement, sorry, storm is here, we cannot take off. Please go to the airline desk and make new flight arrangements. Okay. So I go to the airline desk to make flight arrangements, and there was just a little bit of a line there. In fact, after sitting on planes for, I think, 6 hours that went nowhere, I now stood in line to make new flight arrangements for 3 hours. And I was hoping to get out first thing the next day, but the earliest flight I could get was 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, fine. So I think, all right, well, I'll get a hotel room, it'll be all right. Yeah. Well, in addition to the obvious issues with the weather and the fact that the trains at some point stopped running and the taxis stopped coming, it also just so happened that this was the weekend of the NFC Championship game, and it just so happened that the Philadelphia Eagles were in the NFC Championship game that year. So no, there were no hotels to be had. So anyone who was at the airport in that moment was going to be stuck there for the night. All right, so I figure out it's about 18 hours. And I decide I'm going to make the most of it. So I'm walking around the airport and just sort of trying to enjoy myself and looking at what I can look at. And I see these Rosetta Stone kiosks, the language learning software. And I think to myself, wow, I was in an unfortunate situation, but I could learn new things and make myself a better person. But you know, I never did buy that Rosetta Stone. It was kind of too pricey for me. And after a while of walking around, and now the shops are all starting to close and reality kicks in, and a grayer mood comes over me as I realize how grungy I am, and that I'm not going to have a shower for like 24 hours. Okay, so I decide I'm going to try to sleep, finally. But all the airport chairs had those armrests, so you couldn't really lie down on them. So you could either sleep sitting, or you could sleep on the airport floor. I tried to sleep sitting, but I kept sliding down in the chair. So I decided to go for the airport floor. And I slept on those little thin carpets that are right outside of the closed shops. That was the best we could do. So I kind of get into the fetal position, and I was almost comfortable until I realized I was kind of cold. But then a kind airport employee came around with those little blankets like on the planes and handed them out. And I managed to get in 2 or 3 hours of snoozing. So that was good. When I woke up the next day, looking out at all the snow, it was not surprising that my 2:30 flight was not going to happen. And in fact, I was going to have to fly out the next morning at 6:30 a.m. But the good news was this time I could get a hotel. I was so excited. I was so excited. So I got to the hotel. I went to the gift shop. I bought myself socks and a t-shirt, because you know, I only had my carry-on bag. And boxer shorts, because that's all I had. And I was just so excited though when I got up to my room and took a shower. I was clean, and I was watching the Eagles game, and they won, and it was great. And then you might remember that year the Patriots won the AFC Championship game. Well, they're in the AFC Championship game every year, pretty much, right? And so I was really excited for that game. So I'm sitting there watching it, and it gets to the fourth quarter, and it's looking good. And then in the middle of the fourth quarter, power out. The blizzard was still haunting us. And I heard through all the walls and floors of the hotel, join me. All right, no electricity the rest of the night. In the morning, I get on the early bus back to the airport for my 6:30 flight. No, it happened at 6:30 p.m., and then as it turned out, we didn't really board the plane until 8, and we didn't really take off until 9:30. But I'm not going to lie and tell you that I had some great epiphany during all of this. I'm not going to tell you that I learned the secrets of the universe. I'm not going to tell you that it was all worth it. It was a trying experience, to say the least. But I did notice a few interesting things. On a mundane level, I noticed you never have to look very far to see somebody who has it worse than you do. I saw people there traveling with little kids, with pets. I saw people with physical challenges and illnesses and so on. If my biggest problem was monotony, I didn't have that much to complain about. The other mundane lesson I learned was trying to sleep on that hard floor. I couldn't do it. But then when somebody came around with a blanket, it made all the difference. So with a little human kindness and warmth, even hard things are bearable, literally and metaphorically. But many of the things I learned and noticed were less mundane and come over into the territory of the spiritual or possibly even the mystical. And 70 hours, because what should have been a 7-hour trip took 70 hours, 43 of which were spent awake at the Philadelphia International Airport. That's a lot of time to think. It's a lot of time to kill, but see, there's the rub. One thing I learned is, You can't kill time. And even if you could, why would you want to? Our Unitarian forebear, Henry David Thoreau, said, "As if you could kill time without injuring eternity." It reminds me of Buddhism, too. One of the 5 Buddhist precepts is no killing, and a subset of that is no killing time. And of course, devout Buddhists can live in the present moment like no one else. As Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who I understand is in very frail health right now, as he wrote, "To live in the present moment is a miracle. To appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now is a miracle." Now, the airport wasn't peaceful or beautiful in the conventional sense. Nevertheless, living in the present moment really is a miracle no matter where you are. If I only could have been more in the moment. I had the sensation somehow in this situation that I was trapped. I felt trapped. I had this sensation that I was trapped in the airport and that it was keeping me from my life. But of course it wasn't. It was my life in that moment. And sitting in the airport for so long, experiencing all that monotony, it was tempting to feel like there was nothing happening, nothing really going on. But as Dan Millman writes in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, there is never nothing going on. There is always something happening. There are no ordinary moments. And what about monotony? The word itself comes from the Greek word monotonous, which literally means single tone, one tone. Sometimes the sameness of one moment to the next, the same toneness, tricks us into the illusion that that moment isn't special. But the seeming sameness of some moments doesn't really make them ordinary. There's a Zen Buddhist proverb that says, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." The workaday tasks never really go away, but that doesn't make the moments less extraordinary. British writer G.K. Chesterton put it, "Monotony has nothing to do with the place. Monotony is simply the quality of a person. There are no dreary sights. There are only dreary sightseers." He writes, "Adventures happen on dull days when the cord of monotony is stretched most tight. It breaks with a sound like a song." When I wasn't busy being a dreary sightseer or feeling sorry for myself, there really were some interesting moments. In particular, there were lots of moments of connection with my fellow travelers, in the literal sense. It wasn't the conversations were really pretty shallow. It was the sharing of the experience itself. Those had the moments of magic. I'm sure I never experienced so many collective group moans in a 70-hour period before or since. Every step along the way of bad news, big group groan. By the time the power went out, interrupting the Patriots game, I have to admit the sound of the loud collective groan that could be heard through the walls and the floors kind of made me smile and laugh. I didn't know the other people groaning. I couldn't see them, though I did hear some familiar Boston-sounding cursing going on. But I felt so connected in that moment, and isn't that kind of a miracle? Our ordeal was stretching our tolerance tightly, and as Chesterton said, it was breaking with a sound like a song, even if the sound was a collective groan. I also experienced time in a whole new way through the ordeal. Time is such a weird phenomenon. Isn't it weird how when we were kids, Time seems so much slower. This is an almost universal experience. Almost everyone seems to feel this way, that time gets faster as you grow up. I always think that the 4 years of high school feel like 20 years of adult life, like 1 year of adolescence is worth 5 years of adult life. Well, the monotony of being trapped on the plane and the airport and so on, it took me from adult time back to childhood time. And every hour seemed like 5 hours, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. For one thing, when time is slowed down in your perception, the moments have more weight to them. They're more memorable. I could barely tell you what I did the last 70 hours of my life, but I remember these 70 hours vividly, even though it was 14 years ago. I once heard a program on public radio. It was part of the Radio Lab series. And this program talked about time. And they described a recording that was made in Oslo, Norway. And this is a recording of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which lasts about 90 minutes normally. But they stretch it out with no pitch distortion so that it lasts for 24 hours. And they played some excerpts of it during the show. And slowed down, it sounds a lot like whale songs. But it's more than that. As the host of Radio Lab put it, the slowness unlocks something in the original. Something about the drastically slowed down symphony has a visceral impact on the listeners. And so apparently, periodically, they hold these events where an audience will listen to this entire 24 hours of slowed down Beethoven's Ninth. And the listeners say it puts them in a kind of trance. They say it's calming and gentle and peaceful. Some even said it made them want to open up and expand. Almost sounds like mind-altering drugs. Some wondered, speaking of whale song-like quality, some wondered, do we human beings seem fast to whales? Some wondered, do we human beings seem slow to hummingbirds? In fact, one listener said that hearing the slowed down piece made her feel like a hummingbird. The point is, when time is slowed down in our perception, other parts of our perception change too. There's so much to experience in this world, so much that's happening in any one moment. We can't possibly take it all in, even what's happening right now just in this one room. When time slows down through a monotonous, one-tone kind of experience, it has the potential to be a whole new window on the world. Another thing that some listeners noticed about this slowed down symphony was that being so slow, it never really had a climax. It's all happening too slowly for that kind of dramatic buildup. And someone said, there's no ending, just a constant lifting. In ordinary time, we're all waiting for endings. In the airport, at the hotel, I wondered when my trip would end, when would I finally be home, when would it all be over? And sitting here now, perhaps you're wondering, when will this sermon? Will it ever be over? We want things to end on time, whatever on time means. How does this impact our lives, that we're always waiting for everything to end, even if nothing in particular is happening next for us? When time slows down, it changes our perception to feel like there is no real ending, or at least that the ending isn't the important part. There is only now, and now is the important part. A 90-minute symphony over 24 hours reminds us. A 7-hour trip over 70 hours reminds us. There is no escape from the present moment, but really, Why would you want to escape from it? You can try to kill time, but why would you want to? Mahatma Gandhi said, "Monotony is the law of nature. Look at the monotonous manner in which the sun rises. Monotony," he says, "can be exhilarating and life-giving." May we recognize the gift of every moment when we can be present to it. Indeed, as we will sing in our hymn, all our life is a gift. We can make our own days glad, recognizing the miracle of each moment. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.